I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Controversy over Caritas. A leading Vatican watcher will join us with the latest. Plus, with the swing of a golf club, you will have the chance to make a big difference in the lives of the diocese youth.
Some of the funds that we raise will also go to some of the youth ministry programs in our diocese as well. So, it's going to benefit all of the young people in our diocese.
And it's raining relics. Saintly artifacts come to Staten Island.
There are these physical reminders that lead us to these great men and women that have become God's masterpieces, if you will.
Well, good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. Okay, so I have a question for you. How Catholic is Catholic enough? Well, for many, including the Vatican, that was the central question that sat at the heart of controversy over the leadership and direction of Caritas International, the umbrella organization for a network of 165 Catholic relief and development agencies worldwide. And right in the center of the storm stood Leslie Ann Knight, the organization's Secretary General, who gained the Vatican's disapproval after publicly complaining that the Vatican was out of touch with Caritas. She also criticized Vatican plans to emphasize evangelization over the day-to-day practices of relief work. The Vatican made the rare decision of declining Ms. Knight's bid for a second term in office. And during Caritas' week-long assembly in Rome in May, delegates elected Michael Roy as the new leader. Well, the assembly was closely watched because of the Vatican's insistence that Caritas work more closely with the Vatican to ensure that the organization promotes a clear Catholic identity. Well, Pope Benedict closed the assembly with these words.
Being in the heart of the Church, being able in a certain way to speak and act in her name for the common good, entails particular responsibilities in terms of the Christian life, both personal and in community.
So, has Caritas International turned a new leaf? Well, joining me now to discuss the controversy and its possible resolution is Rocco Palmo, Vatican watcher, author of the blog Whispers in the Loggia, and of course a Currents contributor as well. Rocco, thanks so much for joining me.
Anytime, Matt. How are you?
Doing well. So, boil this down for us. What is the big deal here with all this going on with Caritas?
Well, this is basically just another iteration, if you will, of a fight or of a conflict that's been happening in practically every field in the Church over the last 20, 30 years. Whether it's, Catholic charities, in this case, Catholic hospitals, Catholic education, the various kind of individual works of the Church, Catholic media even. There's the question of how do we we have to approach things as Catholic first. It's not a Catholic charities agency does not provide charity because, we just want to be nice people. It's because this is the command of Christ. This is a work of the Church. See, part of the conflict here, Caritas was pretty much a free agent until 2004, when Pope John Paul II gave it what's called juridical character, which means it's an official agency of the Church, like NET. But the thing that comes with that is there's a responsibility to the wider Church to be clearly Catholic. And one of the concerns of the Vatican officials was that Caritas was acting too much like a secular charity agency and not accountable to the rest of the wider Church.
Well, with changes now and Michael Roy at the top, among other things, do you think Caritas is now kind of back on track to promoting a more Catholic identity?
Well, there are a lot of wounds that have to be healed out of this, Matt. The president of Caritas is the Cardinal from Honduras, Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez, and during the opening speech of the plenary, which he gave, he was talking about how the decision to deny Leslie Ann Knight a second term, which came from the Secretariat of State, in effect the Pope's office in the Vatican, caused a tremendous amount of hurt, to the people who worked with her, who admired her for her professionalism, for her dedication to the work, but it especially caused hurt among women who worked with Caritas and for Caritas. And so, a lot of this will depend on, one, the goodwill of the Vatican, that, having sent its message, will they now kind of adopt a more conciliatory approach? But it also depends on how well Michel Roy, the new Secretary General, can heal the wounds within the organization and really work to bring the team back together.
Sure. Is it unprecedented that the Pope has kind of gotten down in the weeds here as far as the leadership goes of a particular agency or organization like this?
No, it happens. It's not common, but it's happened. I mean, the most prominent example of recent decades was in 1981 when John Paul II directly intervened in the affairs of the Jesuits, and for 2 years named his own superior generals, opposed to the Jesuits electing their own head over concerns, again, for the Catholic identity, for the loyalty to the Holy See and to the magisterium of the Church of the Jesuits. It's happened again. We talked about it a couple months back with the Legionaries of Christ, where the Pope has imposed his own delegate to kind of bring the Legion back in after all the scandals involving its late founder, Father Marcel Maciel. It's again, it's rare, but it's possibly the most significant. It's almost like a yellow card in soccer, or a little bit of time on the bench, just to kind of rest up and to kind of reinvigorate a particular group for it to return to its mission better than it was before.
Sure. And do you think that the image or the mission of Caritas will be negatively impacted by kind of this conflict that's happened?
Oh, I don't think so. If anything, you'll have a lot of people who, or some people who would have had those concerns about Caritas, but before, but now, seeing that the Holy See has worked to reinforce its Catholic identity, could well end up being more supportive of it now than they were. One thing, closer to home here in the States, there have been a lot of fights over the Catholic identity of the U.S. Bishops' Social Development Agency over the last couple of years, Catholic Campaign for Human Development. But, those same concerns were never extended to Catholic Relief Services. And part of the reason behind that is that the now former chair of Catholic Relief, before his election as president of the U.S. Bishops, was Archbishop Dolan of New York. No conservatives in the church are going to quibble about Archbishop Dolan's commitment to Catholic identity. And really, in terms of bolstering that, and in terms of being, a committed and fierce spokesman for Catholic Relief Services, which is the U.S. agency of Caritas Internationalis, he's arguably the most effective chair of Catholic Relief they've ever had, and the agency's done better as a result.
All right. Well, Rocco Palmo, just out of time, but thanks so much for joining us here once again. Appreciate it very much.
Anytime, Matt. Stay cool.
Thank you. You too. Well, there is much more currents ahead. New York legislators returning to Albany today, facing the prospect of taking a vote on same-sex marriage. We'll have that story, plus the rest of the day's headlines, next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, artifacts of the saints up close. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. Well, as legislators return to Albany after a long holiday weekend, New York State's biggest labor unions are weighing in on one of the biggest issues of the session, same-sex marriage. The Public Employees Federation, the Civil Service Employees Association, or CSEA, and New York United Teachers today called on the legislature to pass a bill to legalize same-sex marriage. Governor Andrew Cuomo says that he will, or has said rather, that he will not bring the bill up for a vote unless he knows it has enough votes to pass. The New York State Catholic Conference has encouraged Catholics to contact their legislators to voice their opposition to same-sex marriage. Well, meanwhile, State Senator Ruben Diaz of the Bronx says he's received death threats over his vocal opposition. Just a couple of weeks ago, Diaz led a march to Bronx Supreme Court to protest the potential legalization of same-sex marriage. He tells the New York Daily News that both he and his family have received death threats over his position. He says he's reported the threats to the FBI. Diaz says, he tells the News rather, that he's never preached hate and that those making the threats are doing the hateful things. Well, the Space Shuttle Endeavour is back home after completing its final mission. The Space Shuttle Endeavour landed at Kennedy Space Center in Florida early this morning after a nearly 16-day mission to the International Space Station. During the mission, Pope Benedict spoke with the astronauts via satellite. Mark Kelly, the husband of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, commanded Endeavour during its final trip. Giffords continues to recover after being shot in the head during a public appearance in January. Well, turning now to the Vatican, the Holy See hosted a conference to look at ways to combat AIDS. Rome Reports has more on that story.
AIDS is one of the most deadly diseases in the world. According to the World Health Organization, roughly 33 million people are infected. The first case was seen in the early 80s, and since then more than 30 million people have died from the disease. This dramatic situation led the Vatican and the Good Samaritan Foundation to hold a conference titled The Centrality of Care for the Person in the Prevention and Treatment of Illnesses Caused by HIV and AIDS. The Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, gave the opening remarks. He said that focusing on the patient should go further than providing just medical needs, but rather the patient's other problems should also be addressed.
When the person who brings home the bread is ill, the family goes without food. So addressing the whole person also means helping them in their problems, helping him with a good diet, that along with therapy can, if not cure the disease, at least improve the patient's health.
The Catholic Church runs 117,000 health centers that treat patients with AIDS all over the world. According to the World Health Organization, in 2009, nearly $16 million were used for AIDS research and treatments. About 200 experts from 26 countries attended this meeting. Together, they analyzed ways to offer patients in developing countries the most effective drugs.
The key is to not only find a treatment, but also spreading that treatment as much as possible. Therefore, it's necessary that the drugs are low in cost, especially in the southern countries of the world.
Currently, only 35% of patients in third world countries have access to treatment. That means roughly 10 million people don't have any type of access to medication. It's a situation thousands of doctors and the Catholic Church struggle with every day.
Well, tomorrow morning, the Today Show on NBC will broadcast live from the Vatican. The show will include an interview with U.S. Bishops' Conference President Archbishop Timothy Dolan of New York and behind-the-scenes footage of Pope Benedict. Earlier today, co-host Matt Lauer had an audience with the Pope, during which he gave Benedict a gift, a crystal cat. Well, turning now to China, where the government there will reportedly ordain another bishop without Vatican approval. UCA News reporting the ordination is set to take place June 9th. It would be the second time in the last 6 months that the Chinese government has ordained a bishop without the approval of the Holy See. Closer to home, an all-boys Catholic high school in Queens is going co-ed. The Daily News reporting Monsignor McClancy High School in East Elmhurst will begin admitting girls in the fall of 2012 to make up for a drop in enrollment. Principal James Carey tells the News that allowing girls to attend will, quote, be a real plus for our school. And last night, the NBA Finals got underway. Game 1 between the Miami Heat and Dallas Mavericks was close for 3 quarters before the Heat broke the game open in the 4th and won it 92-84. And there is more on the line in the finals than just the thrill of victory. The Archbishops of Miami and Dallas entered into a bit of a friendly wager. Now, if Miami wins, Dallas Archbishop Kevin Farrell will send Miami Archbishop Thomas Wensky barbecue ribs, tortillas, salsa, deep dish pecan pies, and a Don't Mess with Texas cap. If Dallas wins, Archbishop Farrell will get key lime pies, a case of stone crabs, and a box of hand-rolled cigars, along with a fish bowl containing Fort Lauderdale sand, water from the Atlantic Ocean, and shells from the beach. Now, according to the Archdiocese of Miami, some ocean breezes and oranges will also be included if Miami loses. Nice wager there. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents ahead. When we return, feel free to shout for. Trust me, it's for a good cause.
Well, it's a church-based community program. We have presently now about 20,000 children in the whole program. It's mainly, believe it or not, volunteers. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing.
Welcome back. I am horrible at golf. Yeah, I haven't played in years, but I know I'm horrible at golf. One of my physical education classes in high school actually had a golf portion, but still, I'm bad. A friend of mine took me to a golf course back in Georgia a few years back to try to help me with my game. Still, I'm just bad. So why am I telling you this, you might ask? Well, the point is that there's a golf game coming up that even I would enjoy because, you know, it's not about your handicap or how good your swing is. For the second year in a row, the Brooklyn Diocese is holding a golf outing to raise money for the Catholic Youth Organization. So even if you lose, it's a win-win. I had a chance to find out more about it recently when I spoke with Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, the Vicar for Development for the Diocese of Brooklyn, and Deacon Joseph Catanello, the Director of the Catholic Youth Organization. Well, Deacon and Monsignor, thank you so much for being here, both of you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, to you, Monsignor, tell us a little bit about the golf outing and kind of how it all got started.
Well, the golf outing, the CYO golf outing, as it is called now, a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, the bishop asked me to do a little fundraising or to do a little something for CYO because it needed some funding, like everything else. All the programs in our diocese needs funding. So he asked if I could do something. So I said I'll run a golf outing, which I was already running for Catholic Charities when CYO was under Catholic Charities. Now it's under the diocese. So I figured we had something that was working for many years, which was started, I would say, over 30 years ago by Bishop Govero. And I said, let's do it now for CYO to fund the programs in the diocese.
Well, that being said, Deacon, tell us a little bit about CYO, Catholic Youth Organization.
Catholic Youth Organization. Well, it's a church-based community program. We have about 84 parishes which are in it now. It deals with all the sports for the diocese. We deal with basketball, baseball, soccer, swimming, track, volleyball. We have presently now about 20,000 children in the whole program. We have an administrative end that we deal with. It's mainly, believe it or not, volunteers. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. And each parish has their own parish athletic representative and a person that actually runs the program. Some parishes have some of the sports, and some of them have one or two, depending on whatever they want. But it's a big program. Good program.
Well, from your perspective, what does this golf outing, golf classic, what does it mean to CYO?
What does it mean to say? Well, as Monsignor so aptly put it, definitely to raise funds. But I want to make people aware of what we're doing. We're trying to kind of like revamp CYO and bring it back to its original thing, especially spiritually wise. We have more people going to church now with their teams. We're trying to and that teach them a little bit more about the other end of sports. How to be good losers and good winners. So. That type of thing.
Well, very nice. So to raise funds and to sort of raise the awareness about the organization as well.
Who we are, yes.
Well, very good. Yeah. And I understand also there's a special guest that a lot of people are going to be happy about, and people maybe who are Yankee fans may not be so happy about. You never know. It's still a big name. It's still somebody that all New Yorkers can love. Tell us a little bit about the guest and the honoree.
Mr. Mike Piazza will be attending. Mike is a great guy. I met him personally. My brother knows him personally. My brother performed his marriage about 5 years ago, and thanks to him, I got to meet him. The thing I love about Mike, and I think he's going to be really great here, is that he's not only a great sportsman and a good player, he's a good Christian, and he makes it known. He says his rosary, he goes to church, and that's the example we're trying to get across. So he's a perfect person to pick as far as an example in sports, and a Christian.
Very nice.
So it's good.
Well, very good, very good. Yes, definitely a very special guest there.
And he's been supportive of us as well. Yes. Futures in Education, he was one of our honorees a couple of years ago. Yeah. And so, he's very much involved in the work of the diocese, especially for work with youth. And, some of the funds that we raise will also go to some of the youth ministry programs in our diocese as well. So, it's going to benefit all of the young people in our diocese. So we look forward to having a very successful outing this year. And, of course, anyone who would like to get involved, we can give them any information they'd like to know about.
Absolutely. And where can they find that information?
Well, they can call the development office. They can call really 718-965-7300, extension 1602. And they can get information, and we give them all the information that they like. It is June 23rd. It's a Thursday. It's held at North Hills Country Club, a beautiful golf course not too far away. It's right on the border of Nassau and Queens. So it'll be a fun day. If people don't want to play golf, they can come to the dinner, meet Mike Piazza. We have some raffles, games, and prizes. It's going to be a fun night.
I can do that part because I'm just really bad at golf.
Maybe you can come along, and that would be great.
That might be a good little feature piece.
Yes, exactly.
How bad is Matt at golf? Let's find out. Also, Deacon, I wanted to ask you as well. And of course, you mentioned that you couldn't do the work that you do without volunteers. Volunteer opportunities available. Can people also call maybe the same number and find out about that as well?
They can call me personally at my office, 718-281-9549. And we'll answer any questions, anything. If they want to set up a program or anything like that, we have everything ready for them.
Wonderful. Well, that's great, and we'll of course put that information over on our website as well, so people will find that information there and have all the contact right there in front of them, so they don't have to be running to the pen and pad and all that. Well, Deacon and Monsignor, thank you both so much for being here today. Really appreciate your time.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you so much.
See, I confirmed it there again. I am bad at golf. Stay tuned. There's much more Currents ahead. Coming up, Memorial Day weekend was a time to remember saints on Staten Island.
It's uplifting just be here. Even if it isn't God's will to get our miracle, I feel a real sense of peace right now.
Well, finally tonight, over the Memorial Day weekend, people gathered at burial grounds and parades to remember and celebrate the sacrifice of the men and women who died in our nation's service. But the memory of these brave soldiers was not the only reason people came together over the holiday weekend. Out on Staten Island, people flocked to St. Adalbert Parish to remember saints and come face to face with their saintly artifacts. The parish hosted an exhibition of sacred relics, those physical objects, like a ring or a veil, directly associated with that saint. And by all accounts, it was a moving experience that led to spiritual renewal for many people in attendance.
I have a very unique ministry in the church. I travel the world bringing a very large collection of relics of the saints and hold these expositions within different locations. The saints put us in contact with Christ's mystical body, and their relics even more so. They're these physical reminders that lead us to these great men and women that have become God's masterpieces, if you will.
From the time I was a young boy growing up actually in Brooklyn, from St. Francis of Paola Parish, we had saints all over in processions, and I tried to instill that in my parish, St. Adalbert on Staten Island, because it's something I think people really are hungry for. You could see tonight, over 200 people came, and that's kind of unusual on a Friday night, especially for Memorial Day weekend.
I do have some relics of my own, and I always in prayer call upon the intercession of the holy angels and holy saints. I get tremendous comfort and peace knowing that there's a whole community of saints who have gone before me, who can intercede for me and pray for me, because walking this walk here, we need all the help we can get.
I've had a feeling of joy to come here because my son has stage 4 lung cancer that just spread to his liver, and he's decided to stop his chemo, but he has a great faith, and I know that this is going to work for him, either to bring him peace of mind or to heal him, or both.
The scriptures attest to the fact that the contact with holy objects bring about healing. Is it the relic that causes the healing itself? Well, no. It's God that works it in the presence of the relic, but it certainly happens.
Some of them have been praying for miracles and cures for a long time, and tonight maybe they're going to go home with the same affliction, but hopefully they'll go home also with a comfort in knowing that they could offer their afflictions as the saints did, for the glory of God.
It's uplifting just be here. Even if it isn't God's will to get our miracle, I feel a real sense of peace right now. It's beautiful.
But it's even the little healings within us and the little things that sometimes we deem as coincidences that truly aren't coincidences at all. They're the saints interceding and pleading for us to get closer to God.
Part of what I see my job is to remove the mystique of the saints. Saints that were just so holy and so unlike us that they were easy to admire, but nobody could relate with them. Look, these were people. Some of them had faults, and they didn't allow their own broken natures to get the better of them. In fact, they looked at all of their faults, and all they saw was the victory of God, and that's what separates a saint from a sinner.
Saints are us. We're called to be saints, and I hope that people just feel comfort from knowing that they're not walking the journey alone.
A very meaningful gathering there for so many people. Well, we also wanted you to know that today marks kind of a very meaningful day for us here at Currents, and a sort of milestone. It was on June 1st, 2009 that we premiered our very first broadcast, and boy, have we come a long way. 3 anchors, 2 years, and 1 New York Emmy Award nomination later, we're still here delivering news from around the block and around the world through the lens of faith. And we thank you, our faithful viewers, like Sister Tekla of the Daughters of St. Paul, Monsignor Robert Romano of Our Lady of Guadalupe, Camilo Casano of the Knights of Columbus, and of course our very own Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, and so many more for traveling along this journey with us. If we stayed here and named all of you, we'd be here all night. But thank each and every one of you for seeing us through, and hopefully through a lot longer time period than just this 2 years. Well, that is it for this particular edition of Currents, but coming up tomorrow, is your cell phone putting you at risk for cancer? We'll have that story and much more. But until then, be sure to visit us online over at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.